Right.
And depending on which team he was playing on, there was this one gentleman that he was playing with all the time, and his name is Gino. And Gino, he was the greatest defensive end I've ever seen. He actually plays for Bonner right now.
Okay.
And he's killing it at Bonner. Give out a shout out to my young boy Gino. And but Maurice was always hit the linebacker like right behind him, and they were killing no matter what team we were playing. They will always kill that side. Whether or not they was on the left side or the right side, they was the best tandem I've ever seen.
Wow,
pretty much as young boys. I mean, but the issue that my son has had as he's gotten older, he keeps getting these frequent headaches. So that's one reason why he has not been playing lately. He wants to go and try out for his high school football team, but that's that. Now, as far as he did play basketball for a little while too, he played forward. He had a little dribble for a hot second, but he didn't practice it. He thought he could just shoot threes all the time. As soon as he saw Steph Curry, he thought he was going to be a 3-point shooter. So sports-wise, he was there. I mean, he like you said, he has tenacity, he has the work ethic.
Right.
But because of his headaches and stuff like that, he just didn't go any further. We was more concerned. I was more concerned about his health than I was about the sports.
Exactly. So he doesn't still have these headaches, do he?
No, he does. And the issue is that as I sit here and listen to you talk about you and your wife can't give blood, my wife suffers from migraines all the time. And my son he picked that up from her.
Yeah.
And the older he gets, he's becoming more and more like her, where they're a lot more frequent.
Wow.
And so as watching him grow, yes, it's good to see him grow physically and maturity-wise and things like that, even in knowledge. We do have this thing that we're going through right now where he thinks he knows everything. And I
been there, done that.
And I have to let him know, like, yo, bro, tone it down some.
Yeah.
You don't know everything. I don't know everything.
Right.
So you definitely don't know everything. But he hears me sometimes, and sometimes he's doing his teenage, I want to be a rebel type thing. And that's cool. I'm just curious as what type of grown person he'll be. And I know it's going to come in time. I'm not rushing it. Don't get me wrong. I ain't rushing it.
Right.
I ain't rushing it.
Let him be his own man. Let him take his time.
Yeah. No,
because he's still going to be living with you when he's like 30. Don't worry about it. Everything will be all right.
No. See, he doesn't understand that I already have an eviction notice written up already.
Wow.
Because, man, as I said to him, he and my daughter both, that at some point in time, even though the other cultures, we've noticed how the family kind of stays together.
Mm-hmm.
I think with us, sometimes we don't always tell them to kind of pull back.
Right.
Put some bank some money.
Right.
And then go out when you're really, truly ready. Like, for an example, I had seen something on Instagram a little while ago with this young lady. She said, African-American young lady, she said that in her family, that if, even though one person can afford a Maserati, if the last person can't afford one, they will not do it.
Right.
If someone can afford an apartment, if one person can afford it, but somebody else cannot, they will not do it. They will wait until that person matures enough or gets enough money enough to afford that item. That's when they do that. Then that way, everyone stays on an even keel to some degree.
Right.
But it also makes everyone starts to save, mentality wise. Mentality and material, meaning money.
Right.
So or fiscally. So I think that with my children, I think right now with them, I don't mind incorporating that mentality with them. But I think mine want to kind of spread their wings and fly away.
Yeah,
I really do.
That's good. That's the way you have them, And like my oldest is married. He has 3 children. He's been married about 8 years, but he's been with her about 11, 12 years.
Okay.
My middle, he just has a newborn. Our youngest grandson is like 6 months old. And he lived with us for a while before he left. But it was good that he did live with us. He gave him a chance, like you said, you give him a chance to save his money up, get his stuff together, and then make sure that everything that he wants, he can have. My youngest, he'll be 21 soon. And, my plans are a little different than my wife's plans. But, he's going to be there as long as he wants to be there. And our home is open to all our children.
Right.
So it's no matter where they go, they always can come back home. Their wives can't come with them, but they can come back home.
Well, see, you know what? I think with part of that, I think my kids have that open door policy also.
Mm-hmm.
I think they do until they get grown. We'll see how that works out.
Right.
But I do believe that, as I say to them all the time, I don't want you to go out before you're ready.
Right.
But when you go out there, I want to make sure that once you're out there, you're out there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to come back, which means that if you're here until you're 30, that's fine. But as long as you're going out and you're ready and you can afford it, you're
right,
somewhat
exactly.
stable in your job.
Exactly.
Because right now, people aren't staying in their jobs 20, 30 years anymore.
No, they're not.
So that's why I said somewhat stable. But I think that as I watch them mature, I have a general idea like, nah, they ain't going to be with me forever.
Right. That's good.
Yeah.
So we're talking a little bit about puberty. So puberty basically is the changes that one goes through, the growth and the development of one goes through. So can we associate puberty with the growth and the changes of a neighbor?
I would say yes.
Okay.
I would say yes, because I think the neighborhood is always changing.
Right.
It's always going through some type of growth spurt, whether it's just the neighbors that were there initially, they all leave or die,
mm-hmm.
and then you have another group of people that come in.
Right.
So then that group of people will start to change how the houses look, as rebuilding things and having to replace stuff or whatever else. I think things starts to get rebuilt or refinished,
mm-hmm.
so to speak. So I think the neighborhood does grow in that vein. Also, I believe it grows in stores, whether it's merchandise, or corner stores or whatever else. Maybe you no longer have a poppy store. Maybe now you have a real supermarket now.
Right.
Maybe you don't have Family Dollar. Maybe you have an IKEA.
Right.
So it's just certain little things like that you might change. So I think that the neighborhood does grow. And also as the each generation focuses more and more on education,
mm-hmm.
which also helps to bring up the value of the neighborhood also. So that's also going to grow to some degree.
Right.
Some of them will grow, some of them will stay the same, some of them will fall. It just depends.
So basically the neighborhood is just like, it's like a child that's growing, it's developing, it's going through its stages that it needs to go through.
Right.
And then the neighbors that live in the neighborhood are like the parents.
Right.
So they help the change and the growth of the neighborhood along with other outside influences such as the stores and Dunkin' Donuts might come in and this might come in, and just to watch the growth of a neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do believe that the neighborhood does grow, and it will continue to grow. It will, one way or another. Now it'll stop growing once they come in and bring the bulldozer and knock everything down.
Yeah, correct. Right.
And eminent domain or something like that. Like it
takes over and
right.
it just changes everything. Gentrification.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even with that, that's depending on your outlook on gentrification. Is that growth also?
Well,
because that means that particular. So I guess the question with that would be, is that a neighborhood thing, or is that a community thing, and what is your definition of both?
Right.
Because the neighborhood is just that. It's just if you live from 52nd Street, 52nd and Haverford, that's where I was born at. Raised, my neighborhood. So that's my neighborhood. But when you say community, are you referring to a particular race? Then that community may be moved out necessarily.
True.
So it just depends. I think it depends.
Yeah, true. But just so we know, because we did mention the word gentrification, Let's just tell everybody what it is. It's a noun, and it's the process of reinvigorating and improving a house or district so that it conforms to a middle-class taste.
So in that case, depending on the neighborhood, that would be considered growth. It could be considered growth.
Yeah, to some degree.
If you go by a definition.
But
Right.
some neighborhoods are being gentrified for the wrong reasons. Because if it is something that has to continue the growth of the neighborhood, why do you push the people that's already in the neighborhood?
So with being pushed out,
Right.
truth be told, when you think about it, how are people being pushed out?
Well, let's take Philadelphia for instance.
Right.
And certain areas are deemed to be more valuable than other areas in the real estate field, right? So people that live there, let's take North Philly.
Right.
Temple is a prestigious school, and Temple has brought up so much land and property around there that people that live there, they're being moved out. They're being moved out with, some of them are getting, relocation fees and all that. They're getting that type of money so they can move and stuff like that. But they're shipping them out and bringing in other people and making more money off of this. Now, is it the people that's moving in their fault because they want to live there? No. It's more the fault of the developers because they have, they see something that they want to develop and they can make money off of it, and that's what they want to do. So to me, gentrification is a bad thing because even though the definition says it is to uplift and improve the neighborhood, how come you cannot improve the neighborhood with the people that's already there?
So that is where the neighborhood probably stops growing. So what I mean by that is everyone in that neighborhood gainfully employed? What is the mentality of that community? And depending on if one house is sold on that block for, the house before, I'm sorry, let me go back. If the houses were going for $100,000, but then you have that one that was refinished that went for $175,000, then all of a sudden those houses seem more valuable. If you're taking a look at Philly, in certain areas in North Philly, with those big three-story houses are becoming more and more valuable because you're trying to do what with those? Have more income. You can do a lot more with those houses. It's not as heavy on work, meaning that I don't have to go outside and cut grass. I don't have to worry about all these other things. All I got to do is just walk in the house because I'm a business person, quote unquote. And it depends on the trends of the nation itself. When you look at North Philly, I think of brownstones in New York.
Yeah, I'm glad you just said that because I'm just breezing through this article that was talking about gentrification in New York. And
right.
I just want to read a real quick paragraph real quick. There was a study that was done in the 80s. It said the earliest studies of displacement conducted in the 1980s generated wildly varied estimations of how many people are displaced by gentrification. A 1982 study found that roughly 1% of all Americans, 5% of all families, and 8.5% of urban families were displaced from their homes between the years of 1970 to 1977, either by eviction, public auction sale, or reoccupation, or by changing the state of their neighborhood. It also goes on to state that in 83, the study has found that 5 cities, Boston, Cincinnati, Richmond, Seattle, and Denver, were found that nearly a quarter of 23% of the residents in their urban neighborhoods were displaced due to eviction, increased rent, or the fact that the house that they were renting was sold between 78 and 1980.
So if you take that, for example, when I just mentioned about are people gainfully employed, if that house sold for $175,000, that means my house is going to go up in value. That means I can now ask for more. As you're saying, I